Welcome to English Language for SS1 at LightTech Academy. Today we study literature, Introduction to Set Text. Note, this lesson introduces students to the literature component of WAEC English Language, Paper 3, and how to approach set texts. Specific set text change with each WAEC cycle. Always confirm the current set text with your school or the WAEC syllabus for the examination year. What is a set text? In WAEC English Language Paper 3, Literature Component, candidates are required to study prescribed text in 3 genres. 1. Prose, a novel or collection of short stories. 2. Drama, a play. 3. Poetry, a collection of poems or specific poems. WAEC literature, as distinct from English language, has its own dedicated paper, Paper 2 of Literature in English. However, the English language paper also tests literary appreciation, the ability to analyze and respond to literary texts through comprehension passages, poetry appreciation, and short prose extracts. Currently studied Nigerian authors and works were frequently set by WAEC. While actual set texts vary, the following authors and works appear regularly in Nigerian WAEC examinations. Prose. Chinua Achebe, Things Fall Apart, Igbo Pre-Colonial and Colonial Society, Okonkwo's Tragedy, No Longer at Ease, Post-Colonial Nigeria, Corruption, Obi Okonkwo. Cyprian Ekwensi, Jogwe Nana, Urban Lagos Life, Modernization vs. Traditional Values, Burning Grass, Fulani Life on the Plains of Northern Nigeria. Bochi Emakita, The Joys of Motherhood, Igbo Women, Motherhood, Colonialism, Gender Roles in Lagos. Wole Soyinka, The Interpreters, Post-Independence Nigerian Elite, Disillusionment. Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, Purple Hibiscus, Religion, Domestic Abuse, Political Repression, Set in Nigeria, Half of a Yellow Sun, Biafran War. Flora Nwapa, Efuru, Igbo Village Life, Womanhood, Traditional Religion. Amadako, Faceless, Ghana, but common in West African literature. T.M. Aluko, One Man, One Machete, Colonial Nigeria, Land, Tradition vs. Modernity. Drama. Wole Soyinka, The Lion and the Jewel, Modernization vs. Tradition in Yoruba Village, Boroka vs. Lekona for Sidi, Death and the King's Horsemen, Yoruba Tradition and Colonial Interference, based on a real 1946 event in Oyo. Ola Rotemai, The Gods Are Not to Blame, Nigerian adaptation of Sophocles' Oedipus Rex, set in Yoruba tradition, Her Husband Has Gone Mad Again, political satire, post-independence Nigeria. John Pepper Clark, Song of a Goat, Ijaw Community, Tragedy. Femi Osofisen, Once Upon 4 Robbers, with Justice, Morality, Society. Ama Ata Edu, The Dilemma of a Ghost, Ghanaian, but common, Diaspora, Identity, Return. Poetry. J.P. Clark, Ibodun, Abiku, Night Rain, The Casualties, New Year, Ijaw Imagery, African Landscape. Wole Soyinka, Death in the Dawn, Telephone Conversation, Season, Civilian and Soldier. Chinua Achebe, Vultures, explores coexistence of love and evil. Ni Osandere, Not My Business, The Weaver Bird, I Wake Up This Morning, Hamilton, Social Justice, Nigerian Politics. Gabriel Okara, Piano and Drums, Once Upon a Time, Tradition vs. Modernity, Colonialism. Okot Pibitek, Song of Lawino, Ugandan, but widely studied in West Africa, Oral Tradition vs. Western Values. Lenry Peters, Isitu Died, Homecoming, Sierra Leonean. David Diop, The Vultures, Africa, Senegalese, Negritude Movement. How to approach a set text, analytical framework. 1. Plot, what happens? Know the complete storyline, beginning, rising action, climax, falling action, resolution, denouement. Be able to retell the main events in chronological order. Know which events are the turning points in the text. 2. Characters, who? Protagonist, main character, hero/heroine, their traits, motivations, development. Antagonist, the force or character opposing the protagonist. Minor characters, their role and function in the plot. Character development, how does the main character change or fail to change by the end? Character analysis method, name physical description personality traits actions/decisions that reveal character relationship to other characters' significance in the text. 3. Themes, what ideas does the text explore? Common themes in Nigerian/African literature. Tradition versus modernity, clash of old and new, the lion and the jewel, things fall apart. Colonialism and its effects, cultural destruction, identity crisis. Post-independence disillusionment, corruption, betrayal of nationalist ideals. Gender roles and the position of women in African society. Destiny and fate versus free will, especially in Soyinka's place. Conflict between individual and community. Urban versus rural life, Lagos versus village, Ekwensi, Emekita. Religion and spirituality, traditional beliefs versus Christianity/Islam. Death and the spirit world, Obiku children in Clark and Soyinka, ancestral spirits. 4. Setting, where and when. Place, specific locations, the fictional village of Umofia, things fall apart, Lagos, Ojo, the lion and the jewel. Time, pre-colonial period/colonial period, 1800s 1960/post-independence, 1960 present. Social/cultural context, the values, customs, and social structures of the society in the text. Effect of setting on plot and characters, how does the environment shape events? 5. Style and language, how is it written? Narrative point of view, first person, I, we, narrator is a character, third person limited, narrator knows one character's thoughts, third person omniscient, narrator knows all characters' thoughts. Language register, formal/informal, use of pidgin, proverbs, traditional expressions. Proverbs in African literature, Achebe's use of Igbo proverbs, when the moon is shining the cripple becomes hungry for a walk, things fall apart, as a stylistic technique that grounds the text in African oral tradition. Tone and mood, tragic, satirical, elegiac, celebratory, ironic, ambivalent. Use of imagery, symbolism, dramatic irony, tragic flaw, hamasha. 6. Dramatic elements, foreplay specifically. Acts and scenes. Stage directions. Dramatic irony, the audience knows something the character does not, common in Death and the King's Horseman. Soliloquy, aside, dialogue. Conflict, internal versus external. Poetry analysis framework, for WAEC poetry questions. When analyzing a poem, address. 1. Subject/content, what is the poem about? Summarize in 1 to 2 sentences. 2. Theme, what larger idea does the poem explore? 3. Persona, who is speaking? What is their attitude or situation? 4. Mood/tone, the emotional atmosphere, melancholic, celebratory, angry, nostalgic, ironic. 5. Language and imagery, specific examples of figurative language, simile, metaphor, personification, plus their effects. 6. Structure, number of stanzas, line length, rhyme scheme, if any, rhythm, repetition. 7. Message, what does the poet want the reader to think, feel, or do after reading? Key critical terms for literature. Hamasha, fatal flaw, e.g., Okonkwo's excessive pride and fear of weakness in Things Fall Apart. Hubris, excessive pride that leads to downfall, Greek tragedy concept, applicable to Nigerian tragic heroes. Nemesis, the punishment or retribution that follows hubris. Catharsis, the emotional purging, pity and fear, experienced by the audience at the end of a tragedy. Soliloquy, a character speaking thoughts aloud, alone on stage. Dramatic irony, audience knows more than the character. Tragic hero, a noble character who falls because of a fatal flaw. Foil character, A character who contrasts with the protagonist to highlight certain traits, e.g., Lecono vs. Baroka in The Lion and the Jewel. WAEC exam tips for literature questions. 1. For essay questions on set text, use the TEAL structure, Theme Evidence Explanation link. 2. Always quote from the text to support your points, unsubstantiated claims lose marks. 3. For character questions, begin with a brief introduction of who the character is, then discuss traits with evidence. 4. For theme questions, state the theme clearly, show how it is developed through plot, characters, and language. 5. Avoid plot summary alone. WAEC rewards analysis. What does this mean? How is it achieved? Why is it significant, over mere retelling of events? 6. Familiarize yourself with the specific set text for your examination year. Check the WAEC syllabus or your school's literature teacher. Summary. WAEC literature test prose, drama, and poetry paper includes comprehension of literary passages and essay questions on set text. Major Nigerian authors, Chinua Achebe, Wole Soyinka, Ola Rotemai, Bochy Emekita, Niyi Osundere, J.P. Clark, Gabriel Okara. Key themes in African literature: tradition versus modernity, colonialism, post-independence disillusionment, gender, destiny, religion. Analytical framework: plot, character, theme, setting, style/language, plus dramatic elements for plays, poetic devices for poetry. Critical terms: hamartia, hubris, nemesis, catharsis, dramatic irony, foil character, tragic hero. WAEC exam: always quote from text, analyze, not just retell, use TEAL structure for essays, know the current set text for your year. Powered by LightTech Academy, academy.lightech.com.ng. NECO-approved SS1 English Language.